Good. Well, I should say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are hearing this message. I want to thank you very much for joining us today. Very pleased that we have this special time that we can talk about wellness and getting better and some new information that you may not have heard about. But first of all, I just want to tell you about my little story and why I'm so excited about today. Um, about a year and a half ago, and prior to that, I was really going quite downhill with debilitating problems, mostly related to fibromyalgia and those types of things, and just struggling a bit with functioning, getting out of bed, etc., because of the restrictions I was getting from fibromyalgia. So things like, I even had to be in a wheelchair for a little bit because I was struggling so much. But since then, fast forward a bit, I had met Patricia Bowerman, and she shared with me some new science and new information, nutrigenomics. She'll explain a bit more how all that mixed in together. And I followed the regime that she outlined and the information, etc., that she shared. And it was fabulous for me in that it helped me so much. So now I'm on a mission to share that with everyone, as many as will listen to me. So before I carry on any further, I'd like to introduce Patricia Bowerman, who will share some information with us today.
Well, thank you very much, Linda. And yes, it's been a lovely journey with you these last, over a year, probably close to 2 years now. So I'm going to share my screen here and get started. So we're talking about wellness. Wellness is a state of physical being, but it's very much affected by our mental well-being too. So there are four main areas of toxins that interfere with that well-being. One is our cellular health, and that is damaged by oxidative stress. Oxidative stress comes from just breathing air, burning food for fuel, being exposed to external toxins, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And then also our gut health. Our gut health is part of our wellness, but it's also part of the disease process. And there are many influences there. And then we have products that we put on our skin. Our skin is a permeable barrier. So our personal care products, laundry products, kitchen products, all sorts of products have some surprisingly shocking ingredients in them. And then, of course, our food. You know, the staple of life is our food, but what has happened to our food? We'll go into some of that. So let's start with oxidative stress. Maybe you've heard of it. It's getting more press now, but you've seen it in, say, an apple. You cut an apple in half and it turns brown because apples don't have very high antioxidant content. Now, if you cut a blueberry in half, which I did, it turned to a raisin before it turned brown because blueberries are very high in antioxidants. And so the same thing happens to our cells. They get damaged over time. And scientists now call it rusting from the inside out because you see, you leave a piece of metal outside and it will rust being exposed to the oxygen in the environment. Same thing happens in our body. So scientists now know free radicals, which are those toxins in the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food that we eat, we're surrounded by free radicals. And they're part of the natural body balance. But those free radicals cause oxidative stress, which causes inflammation, cellular inflammation, which is a good thing, but it gets out of control, then it leads to disease. Now, the chart on the right lists just some of the illnesses, the diseases that we succumb to, that we're all dealing with now, that are directly related to free radicals and oxidative stress. So where do those free radicals come from? Well, I mentioned air and the water, but also the radiation from our microwave and our telephones, our mobile devices, pesticides being sprayed on our food and in the air. And when you're pumping petrol, the fumes from the petrol are loaded with free radicals. And gosh, I think a single cigarette has something like 5 million free radicals. So there are pollutants everywhere. Even exercising, which is so essential, it causes increased respiration. That causes an increase in our oxidative stress as well. So what can we do about it? Well, antioxidants fight the pro-oxidants. So we have two sources. We have the antioxidants that our body makes, and that fights 1 million free radicals for each molecule of antioxidant. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And the other is the 1-to-1 ratio. One molecule of antioxidant fights one molecule of free radical, like in a blueberry, like in turmeric, like in, these antioxidant rich foods that we eat. But can you eat enough? Can you eat enough blueberries even to combat all the free radicals that we're exposed to? And we're exposed to more toxins now than ever before. Just an ordinary person is exposed to 300 septillion free radicals every day. That's a normal, healthy individual, not someone who's diseased, overweight, all those things. So our body makes antioxidants, and it makes them so much more efficiently than trying to consume the food that has the antioxidants. And you'd have to eat organic antioxidant rich food as well. So this is a good illustration here of some of the types of antioxidants that our body makes. One is SOD at the top, that superoxide dismutase. That enzyme's role is to gobble up free radicals. And that enzyme was only discovered in the late 60s. And then we have catalase. That's another antioxidant that's very important. One thing catalase does is fights the peroxide that our body makes. And then, oh dear, my phone going. Sorry about that. And then we have glutathione. Glutathione is absolutely amazing. It's our body's master antioxidant. It's responsible for so many things. And I'll have another chart in a minute that will show you diseases related to low levels of glutathione. But the positive side of glutathione, sort of pertinent these days, is glutathione is like a guard or a sentry in every cell in your body. And its job is to sort of watch out for bad bacteria, viruses, cancer cells, all sorts of abnormalities. And when it detects an abnormality, whether it's cell division or an invader, a Japanese doctor described it as sticky flypaper. So it attaches itself to that abnormality, and then it chucks it out of our body, and then it goes in and repairs the damage. And this is happening tens of thousands of times every second of the day. So it's phenomenal for all manner of things. But the secondary antioxidants are important as well. Your coenzyme Q10, carotenoids, vitamin E, vitamins A and C, and your B vitamins and your minerals and your proteins, all those. But they just aren't good enough. And they're taken as a supplement, and they're synthetic. So a little more about NRF2 and glutathione. So NRF2 is the pathway in our cells that helps to combat the increase in oxidative stress. So it fights off the free radicals. While it's doing that, it's boosting our body's glutathione. As I said, glutathione is our master antioxidant that we're born with. And NRF2 revs up our body to make 300% more glutathione than you're probably making now if you're, well, I just turned 70. So Most people, their glutathione levels decline with age, part of the aging process. So activating the NRF2 pathway gets that glutathione back up. So mine is now back up. But glutathione also recycles other antioxidants. So when you're getting your vitamin C and your E and alpha lipoic acid, coenzyme Q10 from other sources, food sources, the glutathione helps to recycle them. So you're getting more out of them. And if you take them as a supplement, it's helping those go further as well. And of course, it repairs the oxidative damage. And glutathione helps to detox heavy metals. So if you spray, or if you're exposed to spray on our foods, which is so prevalent, that has heavy metals in it. We have heavy metals in maybe in your dental work. So many exposures to heavy metals, but glutathione helps us to rid that from our body and get rid of other toxins as well. Now this is the graph. It's not very clear. I can send it to you if you'd like a sharper image of this. But these are conditions associated with low glutathione. So things like ADHD and ADD, autism, which is just, epidemic. It's just ridiculous. And then diabetes and all forms of cancer, immune and autoimmune issues. It's just almost everything. Oh, we have a guest coming in. Can you do that, Linda?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. I think my cursor won't work. There we go.
We got it.
Great, thank you. Now it's not going to go. Why are you not going to go? There we go. Now, this is quite relevant right now, oxidative stress and viruses. I won't get too controversial, but viruses have been around long before humans were. They're part of the balance. Our bodies have 10 to the 15 viruses in them right now, every day. So viruses use oxidative stress to replicate. So I'm trying not to be controversial. It's a bit difficult, but we see some people are being impacted by viruses and some aren't. People who are overweight have high levels of oxidative stress. People with diabetes have high levels of oxidative stress. People who are in a diseased state have high levels of oxidative stress. So for me, I tell people, don't be a host for the virus. Have I been exposed to the virus? I don't know. I haven't gotten it. If I am exposed to it, I'm not worried. My body, my oxidative stress is under control, so my body can fight a virus, a bad bacteria. We're all fighting cancer cells all the time as well. So when a virus takes hold, and this is any virus, a virus takes hold, if you have a robust immune system, you're going to fight it off. Otherwise, it takes hold, and then it starts creating more oxidative stress to ensure its survival. That leads to just a knock-on decline in health. And people die from flu. People die from viruses. They just do, because they're not healthy to begin with. Now, come on, don't play up. There we go. So a few of our body's protective functions, our body was designed to heal. We see it all the time. And some of those are our noses produce nitric oxide, and those help to kill germs. We have all those little hairs in our nose. We have mucus in our nose and our nasal passage. Those are there for a reason, and they're to fight invaders and fight off toxins. Our stomach acid is pH 1.5. That kills an awful lot of things. A lot of the supplements we take as well. And coughing is a healing mechanism to dislodge something or call our attention to the fact that we need to pay attention to our throat. Maybe we need to have a drink. And we know that this particular virus that we've been dealing with likes a dry throat, because it can go right through the mouth, down to the lungs, and start making fibrosis. So we want to keep drinking, and drinking drives the germs, the invaders, into your stomach acid, which takes care of an awful lot. So we have 30 trillion bacteria and viruses in our gut to crowd out the bad guys. So if we look how to foster the good bacteria and the good viruses, then our body's a fighting machine. And our mitochondria play a huge role in that as well. And our mitochondria are, they have their own DNA, in fact, they're so important, but they're like our little energy generators in every cell in our body. And they're responsible for the energy that we need to run and jump and do all the fun things that we do and function during the day. But also our body needs an energy for its jobs that it does, repairing and all sorts of things. Now, this is my favorite slide because I was diagnosed with IBS at age 15. So I just turned 70. So that was a long time ago. Nobody was talking about oxidative stress when I was 15. No one told me what to do about IBS or how to get rid of my stomach aches or what to eat or what not to eat or anything. My mother and my grandmother had their own issues, so it was just like, welcome to the club. But I was introduced to something in January 2010. A friend invited me around to watch an investigative report at her house, and this was in America. And I learned about this new science. It was very new then, and I didn't understand it. I was curious, but I didn't understand it. I'm not a scientist. But they were talking about prevention. And that's always interested me, is prevention. Why wait until you get sick? Let's prevent things from happening. And it would have certainly been good for my mom and my grandmother. Now, at the time when I saw that investigative report, my mother was in a nursing home. She'd been in a nursing home for a number of years. She was bedbound. She had diabetes, heart disease. What did she have? Dementia and arthritis. Handfuls of pain meds and all sorts of things, and medications to counteract the other medications. And she couldn't bathe herself. She couldn't feed herself. And, I felt like I was next in line. Whatever she had, I was going to get. So I started on that regime, on that protocol, just as a preventive. And so I had a series of colonoscopies. In fact, I'd had one 5 years previously where you could watch on the monitor, quite interesting. But my entire colon was red and raw and bleeding. And the consultant said I was at 57 percentile risk for colon cancer. So now, we're going to talk prevention. That's something I would like to prevent. So then I started on this protocol. 5 years later, I had another follow-up colonoscopy to the other one. I was mid-60s then, and the consultant said he was very impressed with my colon. Normally, someone of my age had needed biopsies and had polyps and pockets of all sorts of things, and I had an all clear. A little while later, this study came out. So this is why this is my favorite. Sorry, it's a long story, but this shows 20 colon genes regulated by NRF2. So now I know why I went from being at 57 percentile risk for colon cancer to an all clear. This lists the genes by name. It lists which direction those genes were regulated at the time this study was done and the percentage. So for me, this would be different than it would be for you and someone else and someone else. Be different for me today than it was 5 years ago, because it's regulating as we're exposed to things and as we're exercising or resting, whatever we're doing. It's like a thermostat in every cell in your body. And NRF2 has it's been studied more and more now, but this shows the increase over time for an individual with that antioxidant response from your body's production of antioxidants. Now, this is interesting, talking about gut health, and then I mentioned about things being sprayed on our food. In particular, glyphosate. Glyphosate's sort of like the poster child now for pesticides. The slide on the left shows the cell structure of nice, solid, tight junctions of our gut lining. And then with glyphosate being introduced into your gut, it destroys that. So our gut cells are joined together by sort of a mesh to keep the good things in and keep the bad things out. When that's disrupted, you get something we're hearing a lot about: leaky gut. All sorts of other things can happen, with colon cancer and all sorts of things. So maintaining that cell integrity and the boundaries like they're supposed to be is very, very important, not just for our gut health, but for our mental health as well. So NRF2 has been studied, as I said, quite a lot since about 2003. If anybody's interested in going to PubMed, I'll be happy to show you how to read the studies on PubMed and track the growth of interest in oxidative stress over time. But Washington State University did an 8-year study, and they say NRF2 is the most extraordinary therapeutic and preventive breakthrough in the history of medicine. And that's quite profound. What it's done for me, I'm very grateful, and I would tend to agree with that. So if you'd like to know more about oxidative stress, please just put OS in the chat, and I'll make a note to get back with you. Now, let's talk about our microorganisms. We talked a little bit about our gut health, but our bodies are 9 times more bacteria cells than human cells. That's huge. Our bodies have bacteria all over. Our eyes have different bacteria than our nose and our mouth and our ears and our pits, and inside, outside, we're covered with bacteria, and they're really good, vital bacteria. And then our environment is full of bacteria as well that we need to look after. So here's an illustration of just some of the areas in our body that are affected by our microbiome. And I already gave that away. 90% of the cells in our body are non-human. They're actually bacteria, loaded with them. You've probably heard that our gut is considered our second brain. Scientists are now saying our heart is our third brain. But scientists now know that more impulses generate from our gut and go to our brain than actually originate in our brain and go to our gut. I think it's a fascinating area, because when I was growing up, we didn't talk about things down there. So this is a fairly new frontier for me, and it's a new frontier for science as well. Now, the sensations that you get in your gut, butterflies, whether, if you're in love or you're a bit nervous, or job interview, it can be a warning signal. It can also be something to get you excited and be enjoyable. Fear and sadness, we sort of feel it in our head, but we feel it in our gut. All sorts of impulses in our gut. That fight or flight feeling when we're in danger, we feel that in our gut. And that intuition, when we're trying to make a decision, we want to sleep on it. We want to listen to our gut, is very, very real. Now, this is interesting because it's a graphic indication of how many bacteria are in our gut, but how they're laid out, I think, is very important. Much more densely populated toward the end of the large intestine in the colon, and the small intestine is fewer. So when if you take a probiotic, which is a good idea, but if you think your little pot of yogurt is going to satisfy your gut microbiome, a little bit off there, because your stomach acid up the top is going to destroy most of that. That's why you'll often see on labels, a bazillion CFUs, because they know about 90% of them are not going to make it. So if you're going to take a probiotic, you want to take one that's going to survive the stomach acid. And the one that I take it's coded to survive the stomach acid, and it's round, and it's time released. So it's round, so it rolls along the intestinal tract, but it's time released to release specific bacteria in specific areas. All these different colors represent different types of bacteria. So it's not one size fits all at all. And you want to be careful about mixing bacterias because you get the wrong ones together, can cause more problems than you're actually alleviating. So it's a good idea to really do your homework on your probiotics. If you'd like to know more about gut health, any questions about gut health, it's quite a lengthy, diverse subject, fascinating subject. Just put gut in the chat, and I'll get back with you. Now, this is a Bristol stool chart, Bristol poo chart, we like to call it. This was actually developed by a medical student in Bristol. It's very helpful to get an idea of what is going on down there. I think it'd be great to print and laminate and hang in the loo, especially if you have children or grandchildren. Get some healthy conversations going on. Find out if they've got something's not quite right. You want to typically be a 3 or a 4. So if they're not a 3 or a 4, they can come and say, "Mommy, I'm a 2 today, or I'm a 6." You can start doing something about it before it becomes a big problem. Now, fermented food is a great way to look after your gut health. That might be kombucha. You want to watch out for sugar. If you're buying it commercially, you want to make sure sugar's not added at the end. It's used in the fermentation process. But then for marketing, they're dumping a load in so it'll taste better. Kefir and kombucha you can make yourself. Kefir you can make yourself. Fermented sauerkraut you can make yourself. I teach a little course on how to do that. It's dead easy and fabulous. You can all manner of vegetables, delicious stuff. And then sourdough bread, I teach a course on making long fermented sourdough bread. It's the proper stuff. It's close to what the ancient Egyptians ate and the Romans. It can be tolerated by people who are celiac, gluten intolerant. It's great for diabetics. They don't get an insulin spike. So the fermented foods are huge. And of course, it's only been since the invention of fridges that we stopped fermenting our food. That used to be the way everybody preserved their food. But we're going to talk about glyphosate a little bit more in just a second. But fermented sauerkraut has been shown to help our bodies eliminate glyphosate before it absorbs into our body and gets into our system. So if you want to know more about fermented veg or fermented foods, just put ferment in the chat, or veg. And this is the bread that I teach courses on. It's organic, so no pesticides. It's sprouted, which modifies the starch so significantly that it's converted into a complex sugar, so diabetics can eat it and not have an insulin spike, and the rest of us can eat all we want without gaining weight. It's whole grain, not whole meal. Huge distinction. Whole grain is loaded with vitamins, minerals, amino acids. It's intact, natural omega oils. And then stone ground means the wheat is just ripped and torn and shredded. So it's raw and ripped apart. So our body takes hours to digest it, 2 hours to digest a slice of bread instead of half hour of white commercially prepared bread. And then it's long fermented. So I do a 4-day fermentation. So celiacs, the gluten is so significantly modified that celiacs can eat it without a problem. Gluten intolerant people as well. Linda and I have a friend in common who is seriously gluten intolerant. We'd go out for a meal, and if he got one bite of wheat, have to excuse himself. Not only I gave him a little bite of my bread, so not only could he eat it, he's now making it. Every week he's baking his own bread. So it's great stuff. And then, of course, what we put on our skin, our personal care products. Our skin is a permeable barrier. So what we put on our skin gets into our bloodstream in less than a minute. Shocking, some of the ingredients in the products that we use. When I learned about sodium lauryl sulfate being a toothpaste, I've taken sublingual medication and stuff all my life. So I thought, why do I want toothpaste in my mouth that has sodium lauryl sulfate? And then I started reading the other ingredients. So I've been making my own toothpaste for 11 years. I've not had a cavity since. So you need to look at your toothpaste, your shampoo, your shower gel, your sunscreen, your deodorant, even your makeup, shaving cream, mouthwash. Really don't want to use mouthwash because you're killing off all the great bacteria. But if you want to check out what you're using, go to ewg.org. That's Environmental Working Group. They've been around forever. They test additives in food and toxins in personal care products. You don't have to read that tiny little print on the label and try to, type it in and all that stuff. Just put the name of your product in and they'll give you a toxicity rating 1 to 10. And they'll break it down if it's carcinogenic, environmental, reproductive, what the threat is, and you can do something about it. So you might want to, if you want to take a screenshot of that, these are some of the things you want to say no to in your personal care products. This is especially like shampoo and shower gel. Can you believe there'd be gluten in shampoo? I mean, who would put gluten in shampoo? So all these people who are gluten intolerant have no idea. It's absolutely shocking. So glyphosate is something I bang on about a lot because it's not being talked about. It's considered the ghost molecule because it's in everything and nobody knows about it. It's like wheat. One great reason to make your own bread is just to not ingest glyphosate. Glyphosate is Monsanto's product Roundup. It was developed to be a weed killer. Its first patent classified it as an antibiotic. So think about every forkful of food you're eating has some antibiotic in it. Why are we all getting sicker and sicker? And why do we have such horrible gut health? It's largely glyphosate. Glyphosate is the poster child. There are loads of others. But we need to do what we can to eat as organically as possible, even prioritize what we're eating organically because not everything's available organically and it'd be very expensive too, but wheat gets 2 sprays of glyphosate. It gets a first spray during the planting season to kill the weeds. It gets a second spray during harvest to conveniently dry the crops out and get them into production faster. It doesn't dissipate. It gets processed right along with the wheat and into our flour and into our bread and into our bodies. So many young kids, a mom came along to my bread class last month. 7 and 9-year-old sons were gluten intolerant. I mean, they haven't even been alive long enough to be gluten intolerant. They could eat this bread. So missing out on bread, you're missing out on a food group. Eating gluten-free bread, I haven't found anybody yet who likes it. And they say, actually, I'm not feeling any better. Some of them, I'm feeling worse, and it tastes like cardboard. So then they just stop eating bread altogether. Bread is so full of nutrients. The Roman and Egyptian armies, that was all they had to live on. How far would they get buying from Tesco or Sainsbury's today? They wouldn't. That's why we're all falling into such a pathetic state with our health. So the Soil Association, you can go into Soil Association and their website's fantastic to give you some guidelines about prioritizing your food shop to avoid glyphosate. Apples have no fewer than 15 different pesticides sprayed on them. So buying organic apples, you could do that. You could certainly buy organic flour. It's cheap enough. And organic carrots because they're so good for us. And just, the little bit of knowledge, you're making informed decisions. And then the more we buy organic, the cheaper it'll be. And now this gorgeous weather we're all having, we can grow a few things. But do spread the word. I've got a Facebook page called Exposed Group. I'd love, anybody that wants to join that and read some of the court transcripts about from Monsanto, against Monsanto. It's proven to cause cancer. But Dr. Stephanie Seneff, Zach Bush, loads of doctors and scientists, I post all their stuff on Exposed Group. So you can read, be informed, share it, get the word out. Glastonbury's banned glyphosate. Lyme Regis has banned it. There are communities all up and down the country that have banned glyphosate, and the forms that you can petition your community and get it banned as well. 60% of the bread made in the UK has glyphosate or other pesticides in it. Not to mention all the synthetics and the dough enhancers and plastics and all that stuff. So the cocktail effect, that's something else that the Soil Association posts about. And they're just a valuable resource for just getting our food back to the way it was intended. Eating from God's pharmacy, we don't need to be in such a mess. And the Soil Association, again, they're always on the case. They had a lovely seminar a couple of weeks ago. Just loads of information, more than I could deliver during the talk. But here we are. If you've had a mindset shift, if you've got an issue that you're dealing with, and you just think you need to change something, let's have a chat. If you want to check the products that you use, go to EWG, friend me on Facebook and ask to join Exposed group. Love to share the information there from other scientists